In this tutorial, I'm going to talk to you about modules in Python. A module is essentially a file with Python code. So just like our tutorial.py or whatever you called it, the file that you write all your Python code is a module. We can use these modules to organize our code into multiple files. Instead of writing code in one file, it's better to split it up into multiple files if your program is that big. Most tech companies use hundreds or even thousands of files. Each file is called a module. We could have lots of functions in one file, and by importing that file into your main file, you can have access to all of its functions. If you remember, we briefly touched on importing modules that we didn't write. Instead, we imported the random and the OS module, which were not written by us. But in this video, you'll learn how to write your own modules for your programs. In this file, we have 4 functions. We've got add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Each of these functions just divide all the arguments, or multiply all the arguments, or do whatever operation on the arguments, and then it returns it. We can put these functions in a separate file, or module, and we'll call that file operations, and then import that module so we can use these functions. To create these extra files, we're going to use our code editor. If you want to use your file manager, that's fine too. To do this, it can be slightly different for every code editor, but in VS Code, hit this button over here that looks like a paper with a folded corner, and it says folders when you hover over it. As you can see, I'm in a folder called tutorial, and there's one file in here, which is my Python file. Upon clicking this paper with the plus symbol, we are prompted to create a new file. Let's name it operations.py. So make sure you put .py at the end so it knows it's Python. Now we get a new file, so we can keep switching between these if we want. Alright, so now go back to tutorial.py and select all of these functions and do Control-X to just cut them, and then do Control-V to paste them in the new file. And now you can see that we don't actually have access to this function anymore since it's not in our file. At this point, I'll close this folders panel so you can see what I'm doing. I have VS Code zoomed in so you can see the code just for these videos, so the panel takes up a lot of space, but when programming, you usually not have it zoomed in like this, and with big projects, it's okay to have the panel open, but I'm going to close it. Okay, so as you can see, tutorial.py doesn't work because multiply is not defined. So now we need to import operations so that we can access its functions. So we'll go up here and simply type import, and then operations. This works because operations.py is in the same folder as this file. And you don't need to put .py at the end of operations. Most Python module files have the .py extension, but when importing them into Python, you don't need to type the .py. Python already knows. When you import a module in Python, it's treated as an object of the type module. So when using these modules, they're always treated as objects. So to access each function in a module, you call the functions the way you'd call them from an object. Can you guess how we can call the add function from operations.py? Since we have it imported, we're now treating it as an object, so we can just type operations and then a dot. Now VS Code suggests all 4 functions that are available. We can just call one of them now, so let's do add. And make sure to surround it in a print statement, but we'll do 10 plus 5, and then surround this in a print statement, so you can view the output. And when we run this, we get 15, because we have imported our operations module, so that means we have access to all of its functions, which are these, and we've passed in the value to operations.add. So this is treated as an object, and so that's why we're able to call the add method from it. And like I said, we can add as many numbers as we want in here because I have args, so 30. And yeah, so that's how you import modules. In the next video, we're going to learn about a different type of syntax for importing modules in a different way. Importing modules is very useful because we can organize our code into separate files.